way for the most comprehensive tax code overhaul in 3 decades by passing its own tax bill yesterday. No Democrats and 13 Republicans voted against the bill. President Trump tweeted this morning about the effort. Great numbers on stocks and the economy. If we get tax cuts and reform, we'll see some really great results. Adding this, if Democrats were not such obstructionists and understood the power of lower taxes, we would be able to get many of their ideas into the bill. Joining us right now from Washington, House Judiciary Committee member, Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas. Congressman Gohmert, it's good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Always good to be with you. Thank you, Maria.
Congratulations to you. This is a big deal, and we know it, passing that bill. What are your thoughts about the Senate? Can the Senate get it over the finish line? We were just naming, Ron Johnson is a no.
Right.
John McCain does not like the president. He doesn't want to do anything in terms of legislation passing. Jeff Flake also has problems. Bob Corker has problems with the president. You think can the Senate pass something?
Well, sure they can pass something, but they're going to have to quit sounding like Democrats giving disinformation. When John Dingell was chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, he would have had jurisdiction to bring out Obamacare, and it would have been a lot better bill. He's extremely liberal, but he and his wife Debbie are both they're decent, honorable, honest people. But the reason that Pelosi removed him as chairman is because she wanted cap and trade pushed through, and it would have added massive taxes to corporations, energy corporations. And Dingell said it's not only a tax, it's a great big tax. And what a lot of people do not understand, when you lower prices or lower the corporate rate, you have just lowered prices for the poorest in the country who pay a far greater percentage of their income for the basics they need. Those prices come down. The prices of goods and services, can you imagine 35%, if you eliminated all corporate tax, the biggest beneficiaries would be the nation's poor. And we could compete across the world when you knock down prices by knocking out the corporate tax. But getting it down to 20 was a huge win. I wish that McConnell and Ryan had listened to the president, but he wanted to work something out, and he came up to 20, and they came down from where they were. So it's at 20. It's still a huge help for the nation's poor, and I'm sick and tired of people playing politics and saying, oh, it's just for the rich corporations. The corporate tax is the most insidious tax there is because it is the largest tariff that any industrialized nation puts on its own goods and services. It's time to give that a break and give the poor a break, and more jobs, more income. It's going to increase revenue in the long run. So I'm thrilled that we passed it, and the Senate's just got to get realistic and quit playing politics and do what's good for the American people.
Congressman, the Senate is going to include a repeal of the individual mandate. Is that going to accelerate this thing getting done by Christmas, or is that going to get in the way?
No. It's going to speed things up. And I really think most of us in the House wanted, the Republicans that is, we wanted to eliminate the individual mandate, because what that does is that allows us to give even bigger tax breaks, which are going to help the economy even more. What I couldn't believe about the Senate was when they were talking about putting this stuff off for a year.
Well, they're still talking about that, right? That's in there.
I mean, my gosh, what they would be doing if they put this off for a year is they would be letting the Democrats take the majority next year, and then the tax cuts would kick in, corporate tax cuts, and then the economy would improve just in time for the new Democratic majority to say, look what we did for the economy. I mean, that's nuts. That's really crazy.
Some of that falls on your shoulders, not just you as an individual, but you as a member of the House of Representatives. Because if you had tackled this first rather than Obamacare repeal, if this had been first on the table in February, then it could have gotten done by the end of the year, and then you could have made it retroactive.
Actually, we did do this earlier, and what happened? We did it back, March? But the Senate is, once again, the problem where this happened. So when you say if you had gotten this done, you don't just mean House Republicans, you really mean Democrat, actually the Democrats. The Republicans in the House that refused to vote for it. Yeah, that's who really made the difference.
But Congressman,
yeah, we would have had a lot bigger tax cut if we had done that and the Senate had gotten on board.
We don't even actually refer to Democrats as members of the House and members of the Senate when it comes to actually passing legislation, because nobody will lift one finger to do anything that will help the American people if a Republican is involved.
That's the way it looks.
Yeah, but let me ask you this.
I really was surprised no Democrats voted for it, because I know some of them know in their hearts that you lower the corporate rates, there's going to be bigger incomes, there's going to be more jobs, the economy is going to shoot up.
Well,
some
I agree
of them
with
know
that. I mean, look,
they really are.
I totally understand, and I agree that you lower the corporate tax and it has a major impact, create an environment for business that encourages them to hire new workers and invest in their business. But it's not just Democrats having problems. I mean, let me read you what Maya McGuinness says for the Committee for a Responsible Budget. Fundamentally, the Senate bill suffers from the same fatal flaw as the House bill, trying to cut taxes by $1.5 trillion with no plan to pay for the cuts. In fact, tax cuts that add to the debt do less to grow the economy than fiscally responsible reform, and may even hurt economic growth over the long term. I recognize your priority right now is growth, but when does getting your arms around the debt, $20 trillion, become a priority, sir? Well,
we've been working on that for some time, but not a majority of us have been working on that. But it's really rich to hear the people that gave us a $1.5 trillion deficit in Obama's first year come in and talk about the deficit we're doing. But it was sad to come to grips with it, but some of us have finally realized we cannot tax our way sufficiently to deal with the debt. There's only one way we're going to save this economy for future generations, and that is with growth. And it can't be 2 or 3%. It's got to be major growth, and only then will we dramatically bring down the deficit. So we're looking for big economic growth, and that brings down the deficit. Otherwise, we don't do it, and we just keep spiraling up until we're out of control.
All right, so that's priority one, Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, it is. It's a big deal.
Yeah, Congressman, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because we need to grow the pie, not continually cut it up into smaller pieces. But what do you think the biggest impediment in getting this done? Because we've been promised it's going to get done by December, early December, so it could be on the president's desk so he can sign it by Christmas. What will not get this done?
Well, you ask what's the biggest impediment. It's some people in the Senate's dislike for the president. If they will put aside their juvenile feelings about the president and say, doesn't matter who's president, I want to do what's best for the American people, we will get this tax cut done the next day.
What if they don't?
That simple.
What's the plan B? What if they don't?
Well, then we got to come after them, and we've got to get, like the president's been saying earlier this year, we've got to get Republicans that don't care who's president. They care about doing what's best for the American people, and then we'll get it done. But I think those who have been taking shots at the president, when they realize that their own seats are at stake, even if they're not up for 2 or 4 years, then they'll come around and they'll do the right thing. It's amazing what elections do for helping do the right thing.
Congressman Peter King thinks his seat is in jeopardy. The Democrats have just targeted his seat in the 2018 election. So he thinks his seat is in jeopardy if he votes yes, because he's basically raising taxes on people in New York with the elimination of SALT.
Yeah, and that is... that there are people in like New York and California and New Jersey that are big in Illinois that are concerned about that. But the fact is, other states are going to get hurt too, because there is elimination. I mean, they're not going to be able to deduct sales tax like we have often been able to do. It is going to have an effect on everybody, but the overall effect is a good thing. The fact is, the reason anybody would complain about SALT not being deductible is that it's politics, and they're afraid the perception is among their voters that they're going to get hurt. But actually, that's one of the things to streamline the tax code that was done across the board It's going to affect everybody. I was
Yeah.
talking to a guy from California yesterday that says, well, I looked at coming to Texas, but your property taxes are so much higher than ours, and man, I'd be paying a whole lot more property tax. These are things that are going to, that's going to affect everybody, but most of us see that the overall good of the country dictates, let's get this tax deal done.
All right.